All right, guys, it's time for the Calgary Flames 2025-26 season preview. Calgary Flames last season ended it just shy of a playoff spot. Literally, not even by points. It was by one regular season win to the Minnesota Wild. So they finished on 96 points, equal with Minnesota. So close to a playoff berth. Dustin Wolf almost carried them over the line. But it's onwards and upwards to better things, hopefully, for the Calgary Flames. And, one season ends, another season begins. So Jaden's going to jump straight into the projected lineups as per, I think we're using cap wages.
Yeah, I'll go through the projected lineup. So we got Huberdeau, Kadri, Zari on the first line. Obviously, Zari has not signed yet. Coleman, Backlund, Coronado, Farabee, Frost, Sharangovich, Lomberg, Pospisil, and Klapka. On defense, Barl, Anderson, Hanley, Uyghur, Bean, and Pakal. And then you got Liza Wolf and possibly Cooley, possibly what's his name, Prosvetov. But the goalie situation not looking the greatest. And obviously, notables is Zane Parekh there. He played one game last year, looking really good as an offensive defenseman, possibly playing some games this year as well. So there's some holes in this lineup. That's the big concern. Obviously, no trades were done. Just a seventh for a seventh. That was it. And free agent signings, they got Prosvetov, the goalie that I mentioned. And in regards to moves, in regards to outs, they lose Vladar, their goalie, and Anthony Mantha as well went to Pittsburgh Penguins. The only other notable thing, coaching wise, is just assistant coach Trent Cole was being interim. He now stays on full term and replacing Dan Lambert, who leaves, and Brad Larson comes back, but nothing else really noteworthy there. So nothing really crazy in the off season for the Calgary Flames. They keep it basically same old, same old. Probably you could argue worst goaltending tandem because kind of untrialed goaltenders there in the backup scenario because Wolf is good. And what do you think this team needs, Nick? This team to get over that 1 point hump to the playoffs?
Well, one of the things, a lot of people spoke about for so long with Colorado was that they needed a second line center. Um, they obviously had their first line center sewn up. Well, it's the opposite for these guys. They need a first line center because Kadri, as good as Kadri is, and don't get me wrong, I think he's a fantastic player, but he's not a first line center anymore. He's a player. If you're a out and out playoff contending, cup contending team, Kadri's not your first line center. He's your second. And I think that's the big noticeable thing here. If you go down that center line, Kadri should be on the second line. Backlund probably should be on the third line. Frost, Frost is probably a third line center, so it's a bit rude moving him down to the fourth. But if he was your fourth line center and you had a first line center, that's a pretty good center depth. Like you get this team a first line center. I think that also helps Jonathan Huberdeau perhaps return to his former form he had with the Florida Panthers. That hasn't quite translated to the Calgary Flames. I think there'd be a few Flames fans out there not too happy, losing Matthew Kachuk for Jonathan Huberdeau with the way it's sort of panned out. But yeah, like that's the noticeable area for me because I think Connor Zary, once he obviously signs, really solid player. Coronado, I think he's going to be phenomenal. I think obviously very early on signing that 7x6.5, but when you sign that so early, you get so much value from it because he really only just had his first full season. But probably by the second, third, maybe even this season, he'll probably outplay that contract really early on. Sharon Govich, we know what he can do. Down the left side, Huberdeau, Coleman, Farabee, like their wings are pretty solid. It's just they lack that punch, that main top line center when you look at it.
Yeah,
And
they
outside of
lacked
that,
scoring
yeah.
last year too, so they need to add scoring, and they haven't added that at
Mm,
all. And that is the big worry, that they haven't added anything to increase scoring. But like you said, first line center moves everyone down, and I think that probably unlocks a bit of Huberdeau as well if you
mm.
get a good one. Obviously, they need a face-off player as well. The only player with over 50% in the face-off circle was Morgan Frost. Everyone else was, I think, the next highest was 48, and the rest lower.
And he only played 30 games for them.
Yeah,
He came over at
so
the deadline.
they need a face-off player. They don't have it at the moment, and they need a first-line center. Kind of needs to happen. They've
Mhm,
addressed it in regards to drafting. They drafted some centers, obviously noticing that Kadri and Backlund are getting older, and
mhm,
that will need to be replaced at some point. The next thing, going on to the D, it's missing. Obviously, um, with Zane Parak, if he plays all 82 games this year or goes crazy, could unlock some things for the D. But I still think they're missing a top 2D. And, Rasmus Anderson, I think it was negative 38 plus minus in the regular season. And that's rough for your top minute eater. And then Mackenzie Weegar was the other one. Not in the plus minus, but your top minute eater. So it's a bit worrying there. The top three like Bale, Anderson, Weegar are pretty good. Then it kind of drops off a bit there. So I think they need a top 2D to round out the defensive core. And obviously I think they need a backup goalie because they got Cooley, they got Prosvetov, but they kind of not really tried. You're kind of risking it there. If Wolf goes down, I think their season's done.
mhm.
Wolf's definitely going to play
I
50 plus games, but if Wolf goes down, I think their season's done. So yeah,
Yeah, Wolf almost needs to play 60 games, which is far too much to put on him, considering last season was his first real season as an out and out number one. Vladar was very backup esque, and hence why they obviously moved him on. But yeah, like it's hard to see if Dustin Wolf doesn't play 60 games of the season, are you really going to get 30? Because what, he played 53 last year. So if you marries that again, you're getting 29 games out of your backups, who, as we just said, then there's not a lot of confidence there. There's not a lot of evidence to suggest that they're going to be quality backup goalies. I mean, we might be wrong, but and that is what ultimately hurt them last season as well. When Dustin Wolf wasn't in net, they Vladar. It wasn't a terrible backup performance. He was, I think, 8-9-8. I think he was 12-13 or something. 12 wins, 13 losses. So like he wasn't terrible. He kept it 500, but ultimately, if they could have just gotten a little bit of better backup goaltending from him, they probably find themselves in the playoffs. And
mm,
at that point, you just don't know what Dustin Wolf's going to be capable of.
yeah.
But it is a lot to put on a young goaltender's shoulders. I mean, he's only in his going to be second full season. He's only 24 years old.
Well, same with
Like,
Cooley and their backups. Like Cooley only played 6 games for San Jose,
yeah,
and I have to go to Prosvetov, but he doesn't have too many games under his belt as well.
they don't. Yeah, no,
11 games
they.
at Colorado, and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
like, they're not
yeah.
really tried and true experienced NHLers as well.
No, they've got no games under their belt, and yeah, it's concerning. Like if you pretty sure if you actually add up all three of their careers, they've got less than 100 games between the three of them.
Yeah, we
Now, we know Dustin Wolf's phenomenal from what he did last season, but second season regression sort of thing might come into play where he has a bit of a backward step. And yeah, like if they're not getting at least the same as what they did last year from him, this team's pretty much going to go backwards,
mm,
and fast.
yeah,
And you said they obviously addressed the center situation in the draft. They picked up a couple of young centers, couple young talented centers.
Yeah,
But the problem
that's
is
3 to 5 years away.
and you look at the age of this team, like don't get me wrong, Connor Zari and Coronado and that, they're young, but Huberdeau's 32, Kadri's 34, Coleman's 33, Backlund's 36. Like that's four of your main players that by the time those centers come through, they're gone. Um, or they're in the, twilight of their careers and they're not really helpful at that point, and you're having to replace those players as well. So yeah, I think if this team wants to be serious about contending now, they've got to make a move. They've got to make a move to get a proper backup goaltender, and they've got to make a move to get a number one center, which are hard to come by.
Yeah,
Like,
like the perfect fit is Crosby, but Crosby is never going to Calgary. But that is
mm,
that is the perfect player that would fix this scenario for salary and all the other reasons.
I
Um,
mean, I think there's 32 teams that would love to have Crosby, to be
yeah, yeah, but I
honest.
feel like he fixes pretty much all their problems, at least in the
Yeah,
forward line.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like, with Zari signing maybe 6 mil, 5 mil, I don't know what he's going to get if it's bridge deal long term. It leaves you with let's say 8 mil in cap space. That's good enough to get a decent center, um, especially if you're moving other assets at the same time. So
Mm,
it can be done. Is there any available? That's the question. They've got draft
mm,
picks that they can move. They got pretty much all their draft picks and Vegas's first. So with conditions. So well, I think they were met maybe 2026 first, um, if the conditions were met. So anyway, all I'm saying,
they've got it. Yeah.
yeah, they've got it. But anyway, what I'm saying is they can move like 3 firsts. Like if you're going for it, if you want to make this team the team, you kind of got to move those firsts. The
Mm,
question is that really the way to go about it, and or should you be moving? Um, I know they're on NMCs, but Kadri, Huberdeau, and all the other players that have 30 plus in
yeah.
age. That's the big thing. Um, and I don't think they're going that route. I'm disappointed by their offseason because they did nothing. They don't get
Mm.
better. I feel like they get worse. I think a team like Anaheim will probably jump them because they're constantly trying to improve, and this team just isn't.
Yeah, and that's the issue with getting stuck in this bubble that a lot of teams are in. Calgary's not the only one where you're close enough to making the playoffs,
Mm.
but you're not anywhere near actually contending. And teams get in this bubble of, but we're right there. We just need to take that step, and then we'll be in the playoffs. And then who knows? We might do a Florida from 16th. It's not good. Florida had the team. Like that's, I think a lot of people forget that Florida had the team. It was injury plagued throughout the entire season. They underperformed, but they had the team to make the Stanley Cup final. Obviously, they didn't win it, but um, yeah, like they get stuck in this zone of, okay, well, we're close enough, so we're going to keep going for it. And all it does is it just, you end up losing, who knows? Backlund's their captain, so he's probably not going to go. But you could lose Backlund. Frost is only got another season left after this season. Coleman's the same. They all get another year older, and you end up picking, pick 15 in the draft, and you don't get
Yeah,
that top 10 pick or that top 5 pick. And you do that for 3, 4, 5 years instead of having 5 picks in the top 10 and maybe a couple in the top 5, maybe winning a draft lottery. You end up picking from 10 to 15 for 5 years running, and you don't get that special
yeah.
player that's going to come through your
I
lineup.
I think Vancouver and Calgary have fallen for the same trap. They're in the weakest division, so
Hmm.
their points look better than what they should be. And then, like you said, we can go for it. We can do it. We did it one season, or we were really close that season. And even if this team makes the playoffs, like they have a all right playoff team, in
Hmm.
regards to you know strength, skill based, and etc. But it doesn't get over the line over like the top tier.
No,
by
no,
any means.
it's
So
it's it's not making it probably past the first round, let alone this. Like, yeah, it's not getting to past the second round. So it might get past the first round, especially being, as you said, being in the Pacific or making a wild card spot. You know, but it's not getting much further than that. But yeah, it that Pacific division really does give you a bit of false sense of security, like that you're better than you are, because outside of Vegas and probably Edmonton, and even Edmonton are questionable in the regular season, they just somehow turn into beasts when they make the playoffs. That that's I could sit there and go, yeah, I could make cases for any one of those teams to basically finish in that third spot, because I think Los Angeles are gettable. Anaheim are going to make some sort of improvement. Vancouver, I mean, you're only probably needing 90 odd points. Um, Calgary, Seattle, even. You can make probably outside of the Sharks, you could make an argument that any one of them could potentially take that third spot, which means that there's two other teams that are going to finish fourth and fifth in that division, and they've just got to be chasing that wild card spot from the other teams in the Central. So of course you're going to be sitting there going, "Boy, if we're finishing fourth in the Pacific, we're so close to a playoff spot." But playoff spot doesn't necessarily mean that you're ever going to be a contender. And do you want to spend the next 5 seasons being we almost made it, or maybe we did make it for one season, but never made anything of it? Take Minnesota Wild, for example. The whole time they've had $15 million in cap issues, and they've been making the playoffs just and getting bounced in the first round when they could have been stacking first round draft picks almost. It doesn't make sense. You just end up wasting solid players that you've got's career. You don't get any assets back for them, and you don't build a proper contending team. And
yeah,
that's where I feel like these guys are at.
yeah, they've been in this area for a while too.
Mm,
And I just think it is that lack of like you shouldn't really have cap space here unless you're going rebuild because
mm,
retool kind of works, but it doesn't really. Um, Without how like key players you have to move out to what you have to replace them with. So yeah,
mm. Yeah. No, it's yeah. I unfortunately I think they're gonna be relatively strong again, in the sense that I can't see them finishing like in the bottom five of the league, and I can definitely see them being a handful of points away from a playoff spot again. I just don't know that that's the perfect situation for this team, unless we see them go out and get a true backup goaltender to help Wolf, and they go out and get it doesn't even have to be a first line center. It could be a second line center, just to give them that 1-2 punch. Kadri at second line, this other, or Kadri first, this other second line center in 2C. At least they've got that, and then it gives Backlund and Frost the opportunity to move down, and it just gives them a little bit more
mm,
strength through there. But they need to do something in that area, and then obviously hope that young stud comes through on the defense, because I mean, if he comes through and plays, that defense all of a sudden looks so much stronger if he plays to his potential, because
mm,
he looked phenomenal. But taking that next step is obviously a big step.
yeah, yeah. Look, they probably got the youngest goaltending tandem and the cheapest in the league. And I just realized what's crazy is I'll scroll down so you can see it. Um, Jacob Markstrom's retained cap is more than their two goaltenders
Fine.
by $75,000. But there
Yeah.
you go. I thought
Yeah.
that something to note there. But
Hmm.
yeah, other than that, I don't see them making the playoffs unless they make a crazy move like early season.
Yeah.
I don't see playoffs, unfortunately.
Mm. Yeah, it is. To me, it's not unfortunate. I think this team, like I said, unless they go out and do that, and it's probably going to take a lot to do and go and get those pieces. I almost feel like this team needs a really bad, like, first half of the season for management to just be like, okay, shit, we need to do something. And I think it starts with moving on some of these
Yeah,
players that we can sort of move
you need to
out.
finish
Um,
bottom, but you need Huberdeau and Kadri to be points per game to be like have their value. Because
to trade out
yeah,
some assets and start a rebuild because look, Dustin Wolf, Coronado, all the young players they've got, you start a rebuild or retool now. By the time they're 26, 27, you'll be coming out of it and you'll be in a good position going forward. But if you wait around, you'll be starting your rebuild, had done nothing in the process, and starting your rebuild when they're all 28
all right.
and wasting their careers.
Yeah, well, let us know what you think of the Calgary Flames and their prospects for this year. If they make it, if they don't, and let us know what you thought of our thoughts. But yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. But till next time, we'll catch you guys.
Bye, guys.